A black mother has to hide a camera uh, in the hair of her child, autistic child, to show that they are abusing the child. Louisville mother says her nonverbal child, who could not articulate the abuse, was being abused at school and only discovered the abuse after hiding a camera inside of his hair.
This is alarming. There's another story. And why is it that a mother has to hide a device that records what is happening in a public school while a child is away from home? Miss, these devices are not allowed in the classroom. Let's continue.
7 years of age. Simaj Lee and his mother, Tiffany Lee, with the recording device she used. His parents said for months they received multiple calls and complaints about the child's behavior, which seemed unusual. Quote, as his mother, I knew in my heart something was not right, Miss Lee said. Quote, I ordered a camera to be my son's eyes, his ears, his voice. She said, now that is a loving and dutiful mother who knows her child.
I would have to agree for a mother to feel innately that she has to order some form of protection for her child while the child is away from her says everything. Let's continue.
Here's what she alleges. Over the past few months, I've been receiving calls from my son's school saying that he's been abusive toward teachers and abusive toward other students. Anyone who truly knows my child knows that that is not who he is. He is a sweet, loving boy. This behavior they were describing did not sit right with me. I asked the school multiple times if I could come sit in the classroom to observe, and I never received a proper response or the necessary paperwork to do so.
Raising my sons, I was a volunteer at their school. There was no problem for me to do that. I don't understand why she was unable to do so, as she even had someone younger. My son's was high school, and there was no resistance. Very interesting. But again, this child is 7 years old and has a disability.
This is a mother's intuition coupled with a few red flags. Okay? So there's this intuition. The intuition is then confirmed by their lack of response to correct or remedy the accusation. Well, let me sit here and observe because my child doesn't act like that in front of me. I've never experienced this kind of behavior from my child. So let me sit in on that class in order to observe. That is a remedy. That remedy would work for everybody involved. Not only did they not allow the remedy, they did not provide the paperwork for her to become a present parent observer. Red flags. Now, 5/13/2026, May 13th, I sent my son to school with the camera hidden in his ponytail. It was not visible at all. Around 12 noon, I received a call from the principal stating that she noticed the camera while my son was in the sensory room, which usually means he was already upset. Okay. She told me it was against board rules and regulations. So I went to pick him up immediately. In the footage, here's the allegation. I heard teachers openly discussing smoking marijuana and eating weed brownies. Multiple teachers then, it got worse. The assistant teacher approached my son aggressively. While parts were not fully visible, the audio and partial footage tell the story. The tone of the teacher was vicious. It was abusive, filled with racism and hate. I will not repeat everything that was said. I will allow the footage to speak for itself, but I heard things no child should ever hear, especially not a nonverbal autistic child.
See, There's the problem is that the child was autistic, nonverbal. He could not speak for himself to let mom know exactly what was going on. However, he would return home daily, depressed, upset. In other words, he just was not himself, and his mother noticed that. This is an issue. Let's continue.
Recordings obtained by the local news WDRB, WLKY, and Wave 3 News reportedly showed the child sitting quietly until an individual, identified as his primary teacher, according to Wave 3 News, exits the classroom. Soon afterward, another staff member, identified by the outlet as an assistant, can allegedly be heard speaking aggressively to the child, saying phrases such as, "Get off me, boy." Also, "Get over here, go away," while the camera footage shakes erratically. At one point, the assistant allegedly tells the child, quote, "I'm not playing with you no more," before later shouting, "Get out of here," which caused the 7-year-old to burst out yelling and crying, according to footage obtained by WDRB News. You have 3 separate news outlets who have confirmed the authenticity of the video. Now, you may be wondering, well, why don't we see the full video for everything? Keep in mind, even the shaking is an indication that the child is likely being physically accosted. But because of the placement of the camera, you may not see the individual who is shaking the child. Tiffany explained. There's more. "Let me be very clear. My son stems. He is nonverbal and autistic. He is stemming. His stemming, includes clapping, especially when he is overwhelmed or agitated. In the footage, you can hear his clapping, then it stops. What follows are screams from my child while this grown man is physically and verbally abusing him. At one point, you can hear a whisper that sounds like the N-word. What are you doing?" Along with other hateful, degrading language directed at a child who cannot even speak for himself. After reviewing the footage at home, Tiffany confronted staff about what she witnessed. Here it is.
He's choking my son and calling him the N-word as soon as Sarah walks out the classroom. What? He's choking him. And that's why I said cameras need to be in the class. Y'all let this happen to him. I begged y'all. Y'all called me every week and said he did something that he never done before. He was peaching him. He's never peached before. He was peaching him and choking him, calling him a stupid. And y'all let this happen. On a camera? On a camera in his head. And he's nonverbal. This is my baby. My child. And he will get justice.
When I first watched that video,
My sentiments is sadly, I cried because I could only imagine what the mother was feeling at that point in time. And she held back. Good job, Mom. I hope you get every piece of justice that you deserve. And
was the lack of outrage from the professionals. The lack of outrage was appalling. The mother's outrage is appropriate. Her outrage is likely enhanced by the lack of outrage from the professionals who should have never allowed this to happen in the first place. So their lack of outrage is extreme. Now, remember, she is at the school because she received a call from another professional at the school who said she's in violation of a particular code as it relates to recording. Okay? Not, ma'am, Miss Lee, why is it that you needed to place a camera on your child? What's going on?
not only that, so the tables have now turned. The mother is in violation because she noticed something was going on weird about her son's behavior. The mother's now wrong for protecting her child or using a shield of protection After looking at the footage and learning that the child was being abused by a staff member, she's at fault. Let's see if anything happens to this individual. Let's continue.
That would be the obvious question. Well, Ms. Lee has suspicions of abuse. And because the school has not provided the proper paperwork in order for her to observe her baby, she had to utilize a mitigating opportunity in order to do so herself. So let's look at the footage. The outrage should be comparable to the mother's. If you give a damn about the child, especially if you knew nothing of this, it is your first time hearing it, and you're standing there as if this is not going on. The woman has evidence of abuse. That is a crime. Ladies and gentlemen, abuse of a minor is a serious offense, especially when you are in a position of public trust. It is then an aggravated offense. If somebody knew of the action against the minor and did not report it, they are guilty of a crime as well. You may have a conspiracy here inside of your school. There's more in a statement. Quote, "We trusted his school to protect him, to care for him, and to treat him with dignity. Instead, he was harmed, silenced, and failed by the very people who were supposed to keep him safe." Lee said during Friday's press conference, quote, "Our child was put in a situation where he was scared, overwhelmed, and powerless. And while this was happening, there was adults in the room who did nothing to stop it." Lee said, "This is unacceptable." I'll put up the principal. So Deb Rivera, the principal of Field Elementary School, sent a letter to parents Thursday saying she received several calls and emails about a social media post, quote, "making allegations about a staff member," end quote. Quote, "While I am unable to comment on actions regarding personnel, I want to assure you that we take these allegations seriously and are reviewing this incident with the district," end quote. The principal said in the statement. Meanwhile, Tiffany alleges she did not act until news reports began circulating. Reports also state the staff member heard the recording and has been barred from returning to Field Elementary School during the investigation. Police and Child Protective Services are also involved, which likely means they are investigating. So if the allegations are true, naturally what she has on camera is evidence of significant abuse, both verbal abuse and physical abuse. And the reality is this: if more than one person is aware of the abuse and did not report it, that becomes a crime as well. It's so damn shameful, Sharon, that this mother had to order a camera, place a camera in her child's hair. And the biggest headline that the school should have led with is how a parent can engage in intervention to stop abuse. But that's not the headline. The headline is, well, we can't comment on what has happened. No, listen, if your number one goal is advocacy of the child, you have to acknowledge the parent in protecting the sanctity of her own child. What say you?
You would have to ask the question, what rights does a parent have pertaining to their child, especially in a public school setting? If a mother gets no response when she's asking to come into a classroom to observe what may be causing the misbehavior of her child, she gets no response, no nothing. Child comes home, just not the same. Pressed anger, she takes it upon herself. I can't help but to repeat this because it deserves to be heard 2 and 3, 10 times throughout this video. So the question is, what do you do in this situation? Let's continue.
First of all, the two key words when you first tossed to me were "had to." Yeah, she had to put a camera. She had to go to desperate measures because
Right.
you all don't really care about kids and you don't want to protect kids. And I'm particularly sensitive to anyone, as you chronicled it, who was in earshot, who heard this, who found out about it, who didn't report it. These schools do that too much. I can personally tell you that. And when you have a nonverbal student and nothing stands between him and further abuse at school, except for his passionate, loving mother, there's a problem. And she should have been able to come and observe it. Any teacher worth anything, any school worth anything, they want you to be there. They welcome you there. And if you can help calm the situation, or as perhaps I know I was threatened that, perhaps you too as a kid, where my mother would say, well, maybe I'll just come sit in the classroom if I hear you're acting up. That wasn't going on here, but she just wanted information. You didn't want her to have it because you were up to no good. These people need the book thrown at, and only when they get the book thrown at them, Doc, will this behavior stop. You got to take this stuff seriously.
That's right. And to do it to a child who's already vulnerable, who requires the extra compassion of an adult, and definitely not the other way. Okay. We'll bring up this as they come.
Parents, guardians, those who have young people in the school system, my question to you now is, what are you willing to do to ensure the safety of your children who are in the public school system, be it athletics department or academics? You may want to spend a little bit more extra time making sure that your children are okay on every level. I would love to hear your comments below, and thank you for watching.